At 9:42 local time, a Russian fighter banks over the southeastern suburbs of Moscow and rolls in on a wall of slow contacts crawling toward the city. 24 Ukrainian FP-1 drones, barely faster than the traffic on the ring road below. Easy targets. The pilot has run this drill 100 times. What he can't see is that it's a setup, and that the most defended city on Earth is about to make the most embarrassing mistake of the war, in daylight, filmed in 4K. 30 kilometers out, an officer at one of the ground-based air defense stations ringing Moscow watches the same swarm crawl onto the edge of his scope. 24 contacts, fat and slow, holding a steady line for the southeastern districts. 11 minutes, maybe 12, before the leading edge reaches the apartment blocks where his guns go quiet. He doesn't reach for his missiles. He reaches for something else. For a few seconds, nothing. The contacts hold their line. Then the lead FP-1's track bends, a degree, then two, its nose easing off the bearing it held a minute ago, like a boat swinging loose off its mooring. The one behind it follows. Then the whole leading edge of the swarm is curling, slow and ragged, away from the corridor it was flying to and off toward the open fields to the south. 24 tracks lean the same way at once, and the officer doesn't touch his guns. He doesn't have to. He never jammed the drones at all. Look at where that jamming is actually pointed. Not at the drones, but at the air around them. He's pouring noise across the navigation band on every corridor but one, burying the faint whisper from the satellites that tell each drone where it is. Go deaf to that whisper and a drone does the only thing it can. It wanders off toward the one stretch of sky still quiet, which is the stretch he picked. Swap every road sign in the county but one, and the traffic routes itself down the street you left open, straight into a box of empty field where his guns can work without dropping wreckage on the city behind him. The box fills and the officer holds his fire, because the sky over it is about to get dangerous for his own side. A fighter is rolling in from above, and a pair of helicopters are coming in low underneath it. Put a jet, 2 helos, and his ground guns all into the same patch of air, every one of them slinging metal at the same drones, and inside a minute, one of them downs a friendly by mistake. So they stack the sky into floors. The jet works up high, the helicopters work the deck, and anything firing from the ground holds as long as there's anything friendly in the air. Because a missile fired from below can't tell a drone from a helicopter, so they don't shoot at all. Nobody crosses into anybody else's level, and though nobody on the Russian side will see it for another 10 minutes, that neat little setup is about to be the reason those guns can't save the refinery. High over the box, a contact bursts apart, and the thing that did it comes screaming through the gap half a second later. A single fighter, rolling up and over to set up again. It drops another, then another, and every time, the same weird thing. It knocks a drone down and then just keeps going, way out past the swarm, carving a long, lazy arc across half the sky before it can turn and come back. That's a MiG-35, one of the sharpest fast jets Russia keeps over the capital. Radar that can hold dozens of contacts at 100 kilometers. A missile under each wing that reaches 110 kilometers out, about the distance from New York to Philadelphia. That missile is an R-77. Unlike other missiles, it doesn't chase heat. It chases an echo. Once it's close to its target, the missile switches on its own tiny radar and starts shouting into the dark on its own, listening for what bounces back, so the jet can fire and turn away while the missile finds the rest of the way home by itself. And it's hunting an FP-1 doing 160 kilometers an hour. The jet is so much faster than its prey that it blows past the wreck almost before the pilot can fire. Then all that speed has to wash off in a wide, sweeping turn before he can even point his nose at the next one. A Formula One car sent to chase a bicycle through a school zone where every bit of that horsepower works against him. One pass, one drone, a 30-second detour to come around, and a missile gone that isn't coming back. Down on the deck, it goes differently. Tracer fire walks across an FP-1 skimming the rooftops, and the airframe shreds and tumbles into a field. And the thing that did it doesn't blow past. It stays. a Ka-52 gunship, sliding along right beside the low drones like a car pacing another on the highway, matching their speed and their height and hanging there as long as it wants, hosing them one after another from point blank. Down here, finally, something is doing the job right. 12 tons of helicopter, a 30mm cannon you see here slung under the nose with 470 rounds on the belt, cruising at 260 kilometers an hour, slow enough to sit beside a drone instead of screaming past it. Where the jet's speed was a curse at altitude, the Ka-52 being slow is the whole point. Those two stacked rotors spinning opposite directions are why it can hang beside a drone like it's parked. Some of these crews have 50 little drone silhouettes stenciled on the nose, and they're about to add a row. The jet takes the high flyers it can barely catch. The helo takes the low ones it can sit right next to, and between them the stack is covered. For about 10 minutes, it looks like the system works. From inside every cockpit, this is going beautifully. The MiG pilot has the easiest gunnery of his career, targets that fly a straight line and never shoot back. Up in the helicopters, crews are running up numbers they'll paint on by nightfall. And down at his console, the officer watches the count climb. 20 drones down, 30, and lets himself believe it. 8 minutes to the districts, and the wall is taking losses all the way in. This is the morning every briefing promised him since the war turned into a drone war. Except the wall on his scope isn't getting any shorter. For every drone the crew swat down, the same crowd keeps grinding toward the city. And the number that actually matters, the number still inbound, won't move. He leans into the screen, willing it to thin. It doesn't. Somewhere around the 40-ish splash, the jet's rails run dry. The helicopters thumb their last rounds into the last row of drones and break off, and the approach falls quiet on Russian aircraft. Not one of them shot down, every one of them simply spent. And his scope is still full. Now look at what he spent it all on. The drones that just ate a fighter's whole war load were never trying to hit anything. Stripped-down Firepoint airframes, cheap Ukrainian-built drones knocked out by the hundred, and bare reflector decoys. $55,000 a copy. Half of them carry no warhead at all, just a little radar reflector rigged to throw back an echo that looks exactly like the real thing on a Russian scope. A fighter carries a handful of air-to-air missiles. Each one is worth more than the plywood it just turned to confetti. Some of them worth more than every drone in the wave they were fired into. 5 missiles into a stream of decoys and the jet flies home empty, having traded its rack for a pile of lumber. Feed your entire paycheck into a vending machine full of empty boxes, and the moment the last bill drops, the one thing you came for strolls past you and out the door. Every missile that jet just spent cost more than the drone it hit. The scoreboard said Russia was winning. The officer ran the plan he'd been trained to run, and the plan ran him dry. His box did its job. It just filled itself up with the wrong drones. Because 8 kilometers back, sliding into the sky, his decoys just swept clean of fighters, comes the wave he never got to shoot. And these drones can't be hurted at all. 8 kilometers back, the second wave crosses into the suburbs, and the officer throws his jammers at it with everything that flattened the first. Nothing moves. These drones don't slide off the heading, don't drift, don't go looking for the quiet corridor. They grind north like the noise isn't even there. He turns the power up and rolls in the other trucks, throwing the entire weight of his electronic warfare at a corridor full of contacts that simply do not care. And somewhere in those few seconds, the morning turns over on him. The first wave wasn't the attack, it was the warm-up. Whatever these are, they don't care about his jamming. The one grinding straight through his noise is a Luti. Get a good look at it. 4.5 meters of airframe riding on a straight plank of wing nearly 7 meters tip to tip. The size of a small Cessna, not a quadcopter. A gasoline piston engine sits in the tail, driving a 3-blade propeller that pushes the drone instead of pulling it. And that one choice is why the nose is free to carry the warhead. Fixed landing gear hangs underneath, because this thing takes off from an ordinary road like a weekend puddle jumper. 300 kilograms, most of it fuel and explosive, droning along at 160 kilometers an hour. A car doing the speed limit on the interstate, if the car were carrying a bomb. It carries the kind of Western-built flight computer these drones are known to run. the sort that gets where it's going without satellites at all, 2 ways. It's the same class of navigation hardware American and European firms have spent decades hardening against exactly this kind of jamming. And every dollar of that investment just flew 500 miles into a Russian refinery for free. It counts its own motion as it flies, every turn, every second, adding up to a rough mix with no ping from orbit. Think driving home with your eyes shut, counting the turns from memory. And it reads the ground through a camera, matching what it sees to a map already in its memory. Like glancing out the window and checking the landmarks against the ones you remember. So the corridor he so carefully herded the bait into means nothing here. He swapped the road signs again. This one never read them. It had the route memorized before it left the ground. And it isn't bait. It's carrying a 110-pound warhead under its nose, flown better than 500 miles to put through a building. Roughly the distance from Boston to Washington, D.C. on 1 tank of fuel. 2 crews at the choke point, the narrow slot of sky every drone in this corridor has to squeeze through, dug in and waiting. 1 crew up on a missile tower, the other in the dirt beside it with launch tubes on their shoulders. 4 minutes out now and closing. They've spent the morning listening to the radio net light up with the air crew's easy victories, the fighter calling splashes, the helicopter crews laughing about it. And now the net has gone quiet, and the contacts that were supposed to be peeling away are walking right up the middle of their sector instead. They watch the sky behind those contacts and see nothing. No jets, no helicopters. All of them gone north to rearm, and not one bird left overhead to thin the wave before it reaches them. 3 years of this war taught both teams exactly what an empty sky over an inbound swarm means. The easy part is over, and now it's their turn, and there's no one coming to help. The tower commander doesn't have time for the dread. He's already running the math, and the math is ugly. 24 contacts on his scope, and no way to tell the loaded ones from the empty ones. They all paint the same. He's trained his whole career to fight cruise missiles, big, fast targets on clean tracks, the stuff his gear was made to shoot. Nobody ever trained him to fight a lumberyard. Every interceptor he burns on a piece of plywood is one he won't have for the real strike, and he can't tell which is which. He studies the spread for a heartbeat, picks the nearest hard truck, commits. The tower opens up. 2 drones gone, then 2 more. The rails cycling as fast as the crew can feed them. Good shooting. Fast, sharp, every missile finding a target. And the count on the screen climbs the entire time anyway. That tower is a Panzer S-1, Russia's last-ditch point defense. The thing that's supposed to catch whatever slips past the fighters and the long-range missiles. 20 tons of vehicle, 12 missiles on the rails, each one reaching out 12 miles, about the distance from downtown Dallas to Fort Worth, and closing on target at better than Mach 3, north of 2,600 miles an hour. And the radar isn't the problem. Picture a dish whipping around in circles to keep up with 24 targets. This one never moves. It's a flat panel that throws its beam wherever it wants in an instant, and it holds every drone in the swarm on the scope at once. Like a security camera watching every corner of a room, it sees all of them. What it can't do is shoot at all of them. To steer a missile home, the radar has to lock one drone and hold a beam on it all the way in. And it can only hold a couple of those locks at a time. 2 lines on a switchboard, 24 phones ringing. The crew picks up 2. The other 22 ring straight through to the city behind them. 1 billion rubles of radar, beaten by arithmetic a kid could do. Then a missile detonates right on top of an inbound FP-1, and the drone flies on, trailing smoke, wobbling, still grinding toward the plant. The warhead worked fine, it just wasn't made for this. The cruise missile guts a jet by throwing a cloud of fragments out to catch something the size of a bus, and the thing crossing the sky is 2.5 meters of plywood. The fuse fires a hair early, or the fragments punch through the flimsy frame without touching anything that matters, and the drone sails out the far side of its own near miss. A bear trap built for something big, and the thing crossing it is small enough to step right through the jaws. Even the 2 the crew doesn't gauge aren't sure of a stop. The rails run dry, 12 missiles up, and then the launcher sinks into a reload. And for a handful of seconds, the tower is a spectator, watching a fresh batch of contacts cross its corner with nothing it can do about it. Every drone that crosses during that reload is a drone nobody shot at, and any one of them could be the loaded one. A kilometer away, the next tower is in the same bind, drowning in its own piece of the swarm, and it can't lend a hand even if it wanted to. Its own locks are all spoken for. That's why the swarm came in spread across separate corridors instead of one. Every tower fights its own private flood, alone, at the same moment, and none of them can cover for the others. 2 bouncers, 2 doors, 1 crowd rushing both at once. Neither man can leave his door, and the crowd knows it. The drones pour through the reload gaps. Now it's the men on foot. A gunner swings his tube up, gets his tone late, fires, and the missile streaks past a Luti already on top of him and corkscrews off into nothing. It never woke up. Meet the Igla, 11 kilograms of missile and tube on one shoulder, built to reach a helicopter or a low jet 3 miles out. But the Seeker needs 500 meters of open air after it clears the tube just to arm itself, about the length of 5 football fields, and the drone was already inside that distance, too close to touch. Deadly at 3 miles, useless inside 500 meters. The gunner who waits for a clean lock is the gunner who watches his target slide in underneath the whole weapon. That's exactly what a Russian soldier did on camera that morning, firing into empty sky while the drone he wanted bored past his shoulder. The next gunner does everything right. Tone, shot, a drone tumbling into a field, and while he's dropping the spent tube and seating the next missile, 2 more cross the gap behind him untouched. Count the seconds it costs him. The Seeker needs 3 of them just to find the drone's heat and hold it. Tube on his shoulder before he can shoot at all. Then the shot. The moment it's gone, it all starts from zero. Drop the tube, seat a missile, find the next drone in the smoke, 3 more seconds for the next tone. 13 seconds start to finish, 1 man working alone. A drone is only inside his reach for a handful of seconds in the first place. A bolt-action rifle against a swarm of bees. Every shot deliberate, 3 more past your ear by the time you've worked the bolt. He can fire, he just can't fire often enough. A third gunner tracks an inbound Luti and waits on a tone that wavers, breaks, and won't settle, and the drone crosses his gap while he's still hunting the lock. Nothing's wrong with his missile. The trouble is behind the drone. The leakers that already got through have reached the fuel units and the tanks and lit them. And his Seeker hunts heat. The warm exhaust of the engine, the heat it's built to chase. But the whole sky behind every drone is a wall of burning oil now, 100 times hotter than the little engine he's after. He can't pull a tone out of that, trying to spot a candle against a bonfire. And here's what nobody on the ground has worked out yet. The fires the first drone set aren't just damage. They're reaching back to blind the weapons meant to stop the rest of the swarm. The drones that got through first are covering the ones still coming, and not a soul on either side drew it up that way. The survivors reached the refinery in full daylight. 2 minutes, start to finish. Since the second wave crossed into the suburbs, and everything still standing opens up at once. Magazines half empty from the decoys, nothing left in the jamming, no aircraft overhead, and smoke climbing thick enough to blind the men still shooting. A Luti slams into a mesh net strung high over the units and detonates short, snagged before it reaches the machinery underneath. The net held. Look at what somebody built here. Steel mesh 50 feet up. A last physical wall to catch what the radar and missiles couldn't, and it worked just like it was supposed to. Then the burning wreckage of the drone it just caught rains straight down and lights a fire on the ground below. A clean catch, like grabbing a live grenade out of the air. You caught it, sure, and now it's going off in your hand. Somebody in a planning office is going to write, "Net, successful intercept," in the after-action report. 1 line above where the refinery caught fire. Northeast of the tank farm, a Panzer crew rushes a close shot through the smoke, the radar track smearing the clutter, and flips to the backup site to finish it. The screen washes out solid white. That whiteout is a heat camera talking, the eye they fall to when the radar comes apart, the eye that's supposed to save the shot when nothing else can. And a burning refinery is a wall of heat brighter than any drone engine ever was. The fire has blinded the one sensor that was supposed to save them at the moment they needed it. So they rush it anyway, a point-blank shot on a smearing radar track at a target already on top of them. And a missile that misses at this range doesn't just vanish. It has to come down somewhere, and somewhere is a yard full of fuel. The missile comes off the rail, tracks past the drone, and keeps going. It doesn't hit the drone, it buries itself in a fuel tank. The lid cartwheels up into the daylight, their own missile into their own refinery, and every reason why was already in the air before they pulled the trigger. A magazine half emptied on a decoy an hour ago. A backup eye washed white by fires the swarm had already lit. A warhead built to gut a jet, punching through plywood all morning. Too close, too much smoke, too rushed a shot. None of this was bad luck. It was every small thing the swarm had done since the first decoy crossed the horizon. The herd, the spent fighters, the emptied magazine, the fires, arriving at once, inside one missile. The most expensive air defense network in the world just fired the opening shot of Ukraine's attack for them. It was the second time in a week Kyiv had put this exact refinery on fire, and Moscow's own oil market took the hit both times. The guns didn't fail because they were weak. They failed because nobody had built an air defense doctrine for a war where the missiles cost more than the targets. If you enjoyed this video, then see this one. Where Ukraine destroys a port, Putin can't afford to lose. Bye for now.